Chapter 24. Brian didn't know how this happened to him. It must be because Haley is so caring and full of life that I've fallen under her spell, he thought. Humans were like that. They were free and full of life and promise. They didn't worry about the things most shifters did. They didn't have to worry about being discovered as not being human. They didn't worry that they would be hunted and killed for no reason, other than they are shifters. They didn't have to hide out in faraway places, so as not to be discovered. They were free to roam the world as they saw fit. He reached for two pups lying on the left of Haley, one male and one female. They looked like humans. No one would think they are shifters, he thought. Is that how I looked when I was a baby? He wondered to himself. He never even saw his offspring until they were older and had developed into shifters. All the things he'd run from, he now had to face. Holding the two small pups in one hand, he sat in a chair after building a warm fire. On the table near the chair sat two bottles, and those bottles contained Haley's milk. He couldn't help but smile as he placed first one bottle and then the other in the pups' mouths. Their skin was soft and smooth with a thin coating of fine hair, and their heads were completely bald. They held on to his fingers as if he was their anchor in this life, and that made him feel worthy and made him feel like a father, but these were not his. When he did impregnate Haley, he would be there with her, he decided. As he peered down at them in his arms, he felt a rush of empathy. He couldn't take their mother from them. Brian had made the best and worst decision of his life. Staying up during the day hours and spending nights hunting and helping Haley with the pups had taken a toll on his strong body. The Indian woman he hired to clean and care for the pups wouldn't come until tomorrow, and he thought then he could get some rest. He could take them down to his Grand Canyon home, where he knew it would be difficult for the Samses to find him and Haley. He sat down on a large fur rug, placed it in front of the fire, and took the pups and placed them to the side of him in a small bassinet he'd built with his own hands. They were asleep, and they would be like that for hours. He closed his eyes, not expecting to fall asleep, but he did. The two other male pups were being fed by Haley. Brian didn't hear when Hunter and Tracker crept up to the house. Brian didn't hear them when they stalked him, stepping carefully without even the owls noticing them. Each werewolf stood at the window. They were hunters, but they weren't the king of the hunters. The king of all the jungles was lying in front of a fire, sleeping with Hunter's pups nearby. The dim light from the fire was enough for Hunter and Tracker to see Brian, lying as if he was dead. Was he just luring them in with a false sense of security, only to pounce on them with his strong body and large paws, and tear them apart with his strong jaws? Hunter had estimated that it would take the lion a few seconds to shift. In that time, he and Tracker could go for the jugular, and it would be all over. But then he moved and lay on his back, and Hunter saw the small crib and what he thought were cubs in it. These were newborns, and he couldn't distinguish one shifter from another. Shifters didn't take on their hair color, facial, and body definition until they were a month old. These cubs have been born only a few days ago by a human female, Hunter thought. Hunter readied his bow and arrow, and signaled for Tracker to come through the window, and he would break down the door and come in that way. The confusion would distract the lion shifter, and he would try to protect the cubs, leaving him vulnerable to Hunter and Tracker. When Hunter raised his foot and battered in the door, the redwood door split from the hinges and from the doorframe. At the same time, Tracker dove through the window. Brian's eyes were quick, and his shift was faster, but Hunter had the bow and arrow aimed at the cubs as Tracker flicked his large, long fangs. The lion shifter stood hulking over them. "You don't want to test me," Brian said, his eyes flashing between Hunter and Tracker. "You are the one at a disadvantage." Hunter held the bow and the arrow, aimed at the two newborns. "You can't do that. You don't want their blood on your hands," Brian cautioned. "Tell me why not." "One is a female. You two are hunters with a hunter's principles. Then we'll take the female with us after we kill you and your male heir. Hunter raised the bow and aimed it at Brian's heart. He knew if he didn't strike him just right, that the lion shifter would have enough strength to reach him and kill him and Tracker before he could fire off another arrow. Hunter extended his left arm with the bow and arrow ready. Where is she? Who? You know who I mean. The female you've been pursuing. The one you had your sons kidnap. You wasted the life of 2 sons for 1 female. It wasn't that Hunter wanted to discuss Brian's sons, as much as he wanted to weaken him. That's their lot in life. They are lions, and if they can't destroy their enemies, then they will be destroyed by them. It hurt Brian to say this, but he didn't want to reveal how the news of his son's demise had made him feel feeble. He had received the news from his other sons, and put it out of his mind. Now Hunter was having him relive it again. Brian's legs grew shaky, but he held steady. Then something caught Hunter's eyes. It was a weak Haley, standing holding on to the doorway. "What are you doing here, Hunter?" she said, holding on to the frame of the door, unable to make another step. That wasn't what he wanted to hear. Brian tried to make a move in her direction, but Hunter aimed the arrow at the babies, and he stepped back. "Were you going to kill your own babies? Then you are as bad as he was." Hunter didn't want to explain. Of course he wouldn't kill the babies, but he had to make Brian the lion shifter think he would. "These are not mine. You have lain with him, and now you are trying to save him by saying these are my pups. If they were mine, they would be dead by now, and by that shifter before you. You have a stubborn one-track mind like your father. You've let your emotions color your judgment. I couldn't give birth in a few weeks of being with Brian. Open your eyes. You can't even tell your own kind, or recognize your own babies?" Haley said with a cold, tired, hoarse voice. "I see I fell in love with the wrong shifter." She glanced over to Hunter, then to Tracker, who was ready for Hunter to say the word, and the lion shifter would be history. Raising his bow and taking aim at Brian, Haley rushed in front of Brian. "You can't do this, Hunter." Brian pushed her out of the way. "That proves it, these are his cubs. Why would you stop me from killing him?" "Because he's more of a human than you are." Brian glanced over at Haley, standing holding on to the back of a chair. When she gathered her strength, Brian waved for her to take the babies. Hunter nodded, and Haley stooped and picked up one pup and then the other. She turned and looked at Hunter, before scurrying into the bedroom where there were more cries. "There are 2 more, Hunter," Tracker said, his thick eyebrows meeting. "These are the cries of werewolves, not lions." Hunter's eyes shot to Brian. "Don't you know the cries of your own pups?" "Obviously you don't. If you don't believe me, then listen to your brother. I can see that he's your brother. I don't have to guess about that. And why can't you see the pups are yours? Are you so inflexible and blind with hatred and revenge?" "That's enough talk from you," and Hunter let the arrow fly. It passed through the lion shifter's shoulder, and impaled him into the wall. Hunter placed another arrow on the bow ready to finish him off, when Haley came running in, and stepped in front of him. "Move, Haley," Hunter warned her. "What are you going to do? Kill me too? You can't forgive me for being here with Brian. Did you believe Katy when she said that I chose to be with him? Right now I would prefer to be with Brian than you. You can't forgive the weakness in others and yourself." Haley stood in front of Brian as the blood dripped from his shoulder. "Let him kill me, Haley." "I don't want you to plead for my life," Brian said, standing straight up after pulling from the wall and crossing in front of Haley. "I'm not pleading for you. It's me that doesn't want Hunter to do this. If it hadn't been for you, my children might not have been alive." "It was him that kidnapped you," Hunter said. Remember? It was you that didn't realize that you loved me until it was too late. I want to go home, Hunter, and I don't want Brian's blood on your hands. I couldn't live with you or love you if I thought you could kill someone who didn't do me any harm. What he did by taking me was to make you realize how much you needed and wanted me. Haley walked slowly to Hunter. Take me home and take your pups home. We've had enough of this. Haley looked over at Tracker. She could tell he had had enough by the tired look on his face, and he wanted to go home too. When Haley faced Hunter, she heard a loud thump. Brian had fallen to the floor. Haley rushed to him. She glanced up at Hunter and then to Tracker. Help me. He's passed out. He lost a lot of blood. I can help him. You aren't going to leave him like this to die, she said, her glance wavering between Hunter and Tracker. Hunter's expression was still cold. Chapter 25. Silence lingered, wrapping Hunter and Haley inside its shell. Tracker drove without the radio, or any music of any kind. Music would have broken the tension, but when Tracker made a move to turn on a station, Hunter's hand covered his. He turned facing Tracker, his blue eyes growing dark, signaling to Tracker, not now. Every so often, Hunter would look down at his two small male pups he held in his arms, and then he would look in the back seat at Haley, holding on to a female and a male, the ones Brian had been taking care of. Did you name them? Hunter asked, his voice a whisper. Haley glanced up at him, not wanting to meet his eyes. That's for their father to do. Her voice was dry. I will name the girl, she said defiantly. Her eyes were fiery with contempt for Hunter. She looked down at her babies. You didn't have to do that. I had to, Hunter said. You didn't have to leave Brian alone without a doctor. We shifters can't call regular doctors, you should know that. He will survive, no doubt, and come back to disrupt my life. It's not just about your life. It's our lives, and he will not bother us. My father would have killed him. That is the only way to prevent him from revenge. How do you know? I just know because Damon and Thorne killed his sons. If it had been my sons, I would never let him rest one day of his life. The gap between Haley and Hunter appeared to be widening. It didn't get any narrower as they drove up the winding driveway to the door of the Samsa Ranch. When they entered the boundaries of the ranch, it appeared the news had traveled by Robert. Most of the Samsas had congregated at the large house to discuss the state of the situation. Wilder walked out first. He hugged Hunter. Good to see you, son. Then he hugged Tracker. Thank you for being there. Hunter looked to his father. I need a nurse to help me. Haley is in the truck with my pups. Wilder stood back in surprise. He appeared speechless. Hunter turned and walked outside, opening the door to the truck. Haley looked up in his once cold blue eyes to see they were warm when she handed him two male pups. They remained asleep when she handed them off to Wilder. The only one crying was the girl. She's going to be a handful, Hunter said, smiling, trying to bridge the gap between him and Haley. Haley didn't look at him, but stepped out of the car with Tracker's help. Wilder had gone inside to get Adrian and tell her the news. Walking slowly and uncertain about entering the house, Haley paused, but she saw it as her home, because Adrian had made her welcome and tried to help her, and she was glad to be there. She felt safe once more. She was fond of Adrian, and she knew even if she and Hunter had a problem between them, Adrian wouldn't take sides. Haley walked away from Hunter. The pain of loving him was too difficult, and as much as she wanted him, she had disliked him, because he didn't return her love when she thought he should. When Haley stepped inside the house, Wilder and Adrian were waiting inside the large foyer. She glanced around. It was good to be home. Wilder wasn't a werewolf that smiled often. He might have been one of the most serious werewolves alive, but he extended his arms to Haley and brought her to him, as she held two of Hunter's pups. Hunter gave the others to the nurse and Adrian. She was welcomed with a smile from Adrian. She was welcomed with a warm hug from Wilder that signaled that she was now a part of the Samsa family, but did she want to be? Hunter looked around. Where are Devon and Katy? Before Adrian could answer, Haley gave the pups to Wilder, and sprinted up the stairs with Hunter standing, wondering what had gotten into her. Adrian turned to Hunter. You are just like your father, go after her. Can't you see what she wants? A confused Hunter dashed up the stairs, and banged on the door for Haley to open it. I don't want to see you anymore, Hunter. Open the door, Haley. Everyone will hear you reject me, and everyone will hear me beg you. Everyone, meaning Katy, will hear you. No. Everyone will hear when I break down the door. I can't tell you how much I love you, and how proud you have made me. I want to marry you as soon as possible, and I don't care who knows this. Haley's back was to the door, her hands were wiping her eyes, and she was choking back tears. I don't want to marry you. I thought I did, but I would rather be with anyone except you. If you say that one more time, I'm coming in. There was silence, but Hunter could hear Haley step back from the door. He raised his foot and kicked the door with one boom, and the door opened. Haley just stood there with her hands over her mouth, laughing. Look at you, big bad wolf. Huffing and puffing and kicking your door down. Now what? They gazed into each other's eyes. The warmth, need, and desire that lived between the two could not be denied. I have never wanted you more than I do now. I have never wanted a woman more than I want you. He stepped closer to Haley, and she stepped back, meeting the bed. She had no place to run. It was impossible to outrun a werewolf, and she knew it. His body was close to hers, then his lips were on hers. The insatiable desire was running through Hunter and Haley. There could never be anyone but you for me. I knew it the first time I met you, Hunter said. I knew you were for me the first time I saw you in those little shorts, and I throbbed for you, but you looked too young. You let me believe that you were 15. That was my father's idea, because he knew how yearling werewolves are, she said. Hunter walked closer to Haley. I was a fool to think you weren't for me. I'm sorry for putting you through this. When I asked for Devon and Katy, I wanted to show them my family, and leave no doubts that I had finally found the woman of my dreams. How do I know you want me, and not because I've given you and Wilder more pups for your pack? I will try to make it up to you. Hunter grabbed Haley in his arms, and backed up to the door, which barely stood, because he had broken it off its hinges. He tried with one hand to close it, and the other to hold on to Haley. The door wouldn't close completely, so he pulled her on the side of the bed, and grabbed the comforter and dragged it to the floor. Hunter placed Haley down, and they sat on the side of the bed, away from prying eyes. It was as if he was lying in a cave near a fire, and he had Haley with him, covering her in his arms. The confines of the space they were in made them feel as if it was just them. He placed Haley on her back, then he leaned over and down and kissed her. Their lips met, their tongues twisting, his long tongue dropping down her throat. She bit his lip. That didn't turn him off, it had the opposite effect. He was more turned on by that. He raised up and watched her as her breast heaved up and down as she tried to catch her breath. Then he pulled off his shirt, and she looked up at his wide chest, the muscles straining as he braced his body over hers. He nipped her neck and smelled her hair. I can't wait to be inside of you again. He glanced at her, sheepishly trying to hide the hard bulge. How long do I have before I can have you again? You never stopped having me. I mean, When will I be able to have sexual intercourse? Haley said, smiling. She wanted to punish him, but she was afraid Katy would come between them, just when she and Hunter had found each other. It would be a full moon again, and she didn't want to risk losing him to an eager female, even if he had professed his undying love. She would have to satisfy him, and she knew what she had to do, and she would do it. It could be months. Falling on his back and to the side in shock at her answer, Hunter took a long breath and said, "I guess I have to wait." Haley leaned over him. "There's nothing wrong with a little foreplay." She reached for his jeans and unzipped them, and his hard cock sprang free. His eyes opened wide. His shoes had been taken off before the lake house when he shifted, and he never put them back on his feet. He could travel faster without shoes. Haley reached and helped a curious Hunter out of his jeans. Leaning down and looking at the fine hair making a trail to his groin, she kissed his chest, then his muscles. Holding on to his muscular thighs, she massaged them. They were tight. "Where did you learn that?" he said, his body relaxing. She could feel the rise of his manhood push into her stomach. She felt his pulse drum against her now full breasts. "My father was a doctor, remember?" she said, looking up at him. She slid down further as he watched at her. "What are you doing? Don't tell me you have never had this done to you." Hunter remembered the war female in Alaska. It was with her that he had enjoyed oral sex.